Mining expert Peter Major and Director at Mining Modern Corporate Solutions joins us now to also weigh in on the 2024 mine health and safety figures that was released earlier by Minister of Mineral Resources Gwede Mantashe. Peter, thank you so much for your time. As always, welcome. So your key takeaways from the minister's address first. Does it at least then speak to or give at least a clear plan of action with the current illegal mining challenges that we have in the country?
Look, he says he's addressing it. He certainly has acknowledged we got a problem. That's always a good start, to admit you got a drinking problem. Well, if you don't do that, you're not going to get it better. But I don't think Gwede Mantashe realizes how big it is. If he does, he's keeping it a secret because it's bigger than anybody's got their finger on. But a lot of the mining companies have more accurate figures that they're willing to share than the minister has shared with us. And we've all heard how many reasons we have this problem, starting with massive unemployment, starting with 6,000 abandoned shafts. So I think he's got to start saying, how are we going to address the biggest reasons for this? How are we going to address 30 to 40% unemployment? How are we going to address 6,000 empty mines and shafts in the greatest commodity boom the world has ever seen, when every other country is increasing its mineral production, especially gold, and ours keeps going down? So, yes, I'm happy to hear that he's taking action, but I don't quite know what the action is. And who is going to take the action with him? Is it just going to be he and the press corps, or does he have teams of people going to help him on this?
And that's what we're really trying to ascertain there, Peter, in terms of an actual directive as to how, as well, alongside with timelines as to when these measures will actually be put into effect. But let's move on. I mean, mine-related health complications are also a serious concern, which was pretty much what the focus of this briefing was about. Remember, we even saw this historic silicosis class action, Peter, and it seems that the mines just don't take these health as well as occupational hazards very seriously. I mean to say that they must do better health screening. This is not enough. Taking an alcohol breathalyzer test and occasional actual lung testing for such diseases actually leaves workers more susceptible to more infection underground.
If we look at the big picture here, Alicia, mining probably gets the spotlight more than any other industry. And you can tell me if I'm biased, but mining is always under more spotlights and a bigger magnifying glass than anybody else, than any other industry. And yet mining kills less people, injures less people than about any industry I can look at. It always paid the best of the blue collar industry. It always paid the highest taxes. It always employed the most people. The construction industry kills more than twice the number of people mining does. And we know construction doesn't adhere to half the regulations and rules that mining does. If there's an industry, what do we call a construction blue-collar industry that wounds or kills less people than mining, I'd like to know what it is. So let's go to silicosis. That was identified decades ago. Measures have been put in place for decades. Every year, those measures get a little bit better. But just go back historically all the time. Every country in the world had silicosis. Every country in the world addressed it, and it's not a problem with new miners. It hasn't been a problem with new miners in a couple decades, to my knowledge. So we've addressed all the problems as well as the rest of the world has, but we seem to get beat up more often, and we are damaging less people than any other blue-collar heavy-duty industry, but we seem to be on the front page and in the news more than anybody else.
Absolutely, Peter. What do you then think about the sector's goal to eliminate all fatalities within the mines? I mean, human error as well as unavoidable circumstances will always present a risk, right, Peter? Is this then even realistic? I mean, they spoke about some audits as well as inspections that uncovered about 7,000 transgressions, and they failed to actually go into detail about what these transgressions actually were.
Yeah, it's always the lacking detail that makes us wary, that makes us suspicious, because we read about large pirate mines, that employ hundreds of people, that produce hundreds of millions of rands of coal that have gone on for years and years. And yet, the listed mines that are really under the gun, really under the spotlight, they're getting citations for broken tail lights or a loose cable someplace or a sign that was put too far away from where it should have been or a sign that was put in too close. So, yeah, I'd love to see the citations. And this is a problem with promoting small-scale mining. The government doesn't have the staff and capability to monitor hundreds of mines, let alone thousands of mines. But when you're monitoring a few big mines, they have to do all that work for you. Otherwise, you can walk in and just throw the switch down, cut off their power, put their license on hold. But to monitor hundreds and hundreds of small mining companies, and they're the ones that don't have the capability to adhering to even a quarter of the regulations. It's about priorities. Government's got so much money, so many men. They should set the priorities so they do the most good for the time and money spent.
Absolutely, Peter. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you so much for your input. As always, that is Peter Major there. He's the mining expert as well as director at Mining Modern Corporate Solutions, also reacting to that mining briefing that took place earlier on today.